Hello, for this session we are looking at philosophies, centre philosophies, but more importantly your own. So note important aspects of this session because you do need to write your own philosophy statement for part of the assignment yet to be submitted. So it is really important to think about what's important to you and your beliefs and your passions, and to also make sure you have considered the ECA Code of Ethics and how something from that will be reflected within your own philosophy statement. So not just as a reference stuck somewhere, some sort of a statement in how you'll use it as a guiding document would be a very wise thing to do. So let's get started. So a philosophy is a statement of intent, and it's about what you believe about children, what you think children need, what role you think you should play. Also, it's about your values in relation to parents and families, and also those of the staff. So any strong beliefs you have that are worthy of noting. So there are many references to the philosophy statement that a centre needs within the National Quality Standards, and this guides all aspects of the service's operations. So some reflective questions for you to think about. What are you passionate about in early childhood education? What values are important to you in working with children? And what types of adults do you wish the children you work with to become? And how do you view your role working with children and their families? And you might think of other questions to ask yourself in relation to what you would write for your own philosophy statement. Here's some examples of value statements collected from educators from a service. So consulting people within the community, including children, families, staff, is really important so that you're actually reflecting the values of the community, hearing their voices, creating openness in the way that you can all work together. And that helps build a sense of community. Relationships with children, parents and staff, creating developing a dynamic teaching and learning community. So reflecting your values are important as part of the core curriculum as well. So thinking about how you'll value different points of view, it sets the direction in every way to move. And thinking also about how everyone will own the philosophy is another important aspect. They have an understanding of it. So it also needs to be reviewed annually. We call that a self-review. And sometimes there may be significant changes where you might need to add something within a philosophy. Here's some examples of statements collected from families. Here's some examples of children's responses. Why do you come here? What do you like doing best here? What's fair? Sorry, they weren't examples. They were the questions posed to the children. I love the what's fair and what's not fair. That led to some very interesting responses when I have asked children that And in particular, I remember one time when a child said to me, "It's not fair when adults don't sit enough with me." And that made us critically reflect to staff. Were we being equitable to all children? Were there some children that demanded our time more? What did it look like to children in practice? Further responses. Don't you love? Because my mum and dad like it. Because I want to see my friends. There's things the children are actually telling us through these questions. So what do the children's voices tell us? And what do you think is important to children? What would you expect they might say if you posed that question? Malaguzzi, as you hopefully are aware now of the Reggio Emilia philosophy values, and Malaguzzi's quote here reflects what's important in a Reggio Emilia service. Of course, education is not based solely on relationships. However, we consider relationships to be the fundamental organising strategy of our educational system. We view relationships not simply as a warm, protective backdrop of blanket, but as a coming together of elements interacting dynamically toward a common purpose. That says it all, toward a common purpose. So what does this mean in practice? It starts at the front gate or door. It's about the messages that you feel or sense when you enter a service. And sometimes it can feel jaded or tense. So that's a good question to ask. Why might that be the case? What makes the difference? And what actions might be in place when you do feel a positive response to entering a service? How do they show their values? All those values need to be reflected in philosophy, but also policy statements. So we're going to have a quick look here at considering an environmental sustainability policy and what that might look like. So there would need to be statements adopted in the policies, but also the philosophy. It would also be part of curriculum. So you can see here practices by the staff, coloured bins for recycling, sorting and categorising waste at the children's lunch time. So the children here knew it was everyone's business. These values were reflected within the curriculum, taking the view that children too were global citizens and environmentalists. Let's look at examples of philosophy values and how they relate to an early childhood setting. You've just seen one for environmental philosophy, but here we can see names on the bag or closet areas that develop a sense of identity and belonging, a place for children's belonging. It's part of the entrance area where families feel there's a space and a place for their children and the belongings, names to identify them, helping build a sense of identity, a place where staff greet and farewell children. It's about the atmosphere upon arrival. Setting the table at lunchtime, tablecloths to show this is a respectful, different time when we come together or when the children and staff come together. Name places, supporting literacy for children, but also a sense of identity and belonging. This centre has the glasses and plates right next to the area where children help themselves to set the tables for lunchtime. So seeing children as having agency and a sense of autonomy is part of the routine. So rather than children having to wait for long periods for lunch, they become part of a smooth transition in setting the table and being a part of the learning experience within the routine. 'Cause, 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 'cause You might have the word respect in a philosophy. So what would this look like? Here you can see it's about aesthetics, presentation for a sense of order. In this service, children are involved in setting up, packing away. They are part of the routine for a smooth, flexible routine where time is valued in the way they work with children to take a part within the routines for responsibilities. A view of children as competent and capable for lifelong learning, just like the elf guides us, dispositions for learning. Children connecting with the natural environment. There is actually a vegetable garden and real living plants. Understanding Aboriginal perspectives. Asking through the child's voice, do you know me? How do you appreciate and understand my interests and abilities and those of my family? Is this place fair for me? How do you encourage and facilitate my efforts to be part of the group? And do you hear us all when you have a diverse community? How do you invite each of us to listen and communicate? So there are steps and processes in developing a philosophy, but it's important to consider voices for all, using surveys, questionnaires, discussions, interviews, parent-teacher meetings. All of these are ways of collecting information. It's also important to think about the code of ethics and what that looks like within your philosophy statement when you do one. And this is a great document, an excellent document to work with staff so that you can discuss values and what practices will look like. So think about your statement. What would it be? How will it reflect your beliefs? And how will it guide your practice and pedagogy? Together with links to the ELF. Make sure that it provides a clear vision for you and a service you may work in. So set 2 in thinking about that, ready for your task 2. Thanks for listening. Bye.